But now I don't see those cobbles and curbs. I don't hear the blues anymore.
Rough Trade is giving away a third of the first 3 months of the Rough Trade Club plus new music membership exclusively to 101 Part-Time Jobs listeners. Become a member of Rough Trade Club New Music and you'll receive the Rough Trade Album of the Month straight to your door every month on exclusive vinyl pressing with exclusive bonus material. Club members have received exclusive pressings of albums from Sufjan Stevens, Sprints, The Last Dinner Party, Julie Byrne and Over Mono, just to name a few, this past year alone. Sign up using the promo code CLUB101POD and you'll get the Rough Trade Album of the Month, English Teacher's excellent debut album, This Could Be Texas, on exclusive Galaxy Gold for a third of the usual price. Here's English Teacher on a recent episode of 101.
How many opportunities do you get to write a debut album and have all of this, sport behind us? I don't know, I really like the idea of holding the bar as being like classic songs.
You only get one shot at a debut.
Don't want the album of the month but still want all the benefits? Sign up to the standard tier using Club 101 Pod and you'll still get the first month free. You'll also get free shipping on all orders, 10% off the bar and on secondhand vinyl in store, and exclusive access to sold out Rough Trade events. So don't hang around. Go to roughtrade.com/club and sign up with the code CLUB101POD. That's CLUB101POD and claim money off the album of the month, English Teachers This Could Be Texas, today. This offer's available to UK residents only. Do you play in bands? I did for the longest time. And I wish that I knew that DistroKid was a thing. I don't even think it existed back then. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of your royalties and earnings. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all the major streaming services. When you get DistroKid, you can see a DistroKid bank and withdraw your earnings. You get notified when you've earned royalties and you can withdraw via the app. And you can even check your streaming stats on Spotify and Apple. Get 30% off your first year on DistroKid by going to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. 30% off for your first year. That's not bad. We know it's a tough world out there. Why don't you make it easier for yourself? And to get 30% off that free year as an artist, where you get 100% of your royalties and earnings, go to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. All right, stay with me. I'll be right back after this.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Hello, you're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs with me, Giles Bidder. It's where I speak to bands and artists about how they've got through their days making music the number one thing. That includes all the different jobs that go into touring, practicing, writing. A lot of bands I'm speaking to about their side hustles and temporary jobs they're doing between tours, but today's guest hasn't had to do many of those because since 1996, they've been a huge staple in the British rock landscape. It's Kula Shaker, and I'm speaking to Crispian Mills on the day that their new album, Natural Magic, is up for pre-order. We hear some stories of the writing session for that, and we get some tales from right back at the start.
Some of our happiest, most memorable times were when we were struggling, without a doubt. And actually, as the success started to snowball, the stress levels went on, the dramas got more constant, and it became much less fun.
So Crispian Mills here on 101 Part-Time Jobs today. Before we get into the episode, I'm going to speak with Rebecca from the band Eka, who's also a brand ambassador for Ampolo, which is a practice-at-home app. It's getting to the end of wedding season, so if there's anyone out there who's been playing in a wedding band, about to play in a wedding band, and needs to get their chops up on a Paul McCartney bass line where he doesn't play the same thing twice, Ampolo is the app for you.
The one wedding I played as a larger band, I remember I actually messed up my Spotify account because of it, and Polo would have been a lifesaver.
Yeah, you could hear it back, hear yourself play it, and that probably has, that definitely has that kind of subconscious impact of being like, yeah, I can do that. If I did it then, I can do it again now.
Exactly, yeah. You're not having to like run over to your laptop the whole time, set up a new recording channel, all that kind of stuff.
That's Ampolo. It's free. You can download it from the App Store now. Happy practicing. All right, here's Crispian Mills on 101 Part-Time Jobs. If you like this show, please leave a review or rating on Apple or Spotify, and please subscribe so you keep getting these new episodes straight to your phone. Cheers for listening. 101 Part-Time Jobs. And I think, not too much of a stringent line to like what this show is about, because it is about lifestyle, and it is about, having an idea and going for it, and like kind of believing in an adventure enough to become that adventure. So that's the sort of the start of it. And I loved your Sunday Telegraph piece where you talk about, lots of musicians who are doing other things like dog walking and babysitting, because we live in that world, right? That's the reality of being in a band now, is that unless you're at the very top of your game, at the very, very top of the game, like living as a musician is you've got to do other things, right?
Yeah, it's very easy to get into, I guess, some golden age syndrome, or doom and gloom. I think the big problem that all musicians have is that music has really kind of sort of, in terms of being a constant source of work, the opportunities just aren't there anymore. Every pub, every bar, every club, every pier used to have a band or an orchestra, and it was so much. Live music was so much part of the culture, and it's dried up and dried up and dried up and dried up, and getting to the point where one of the big effects is it means that you can't really learn your craft. Playing music, so much of it is about the reciprocation and seeing how an audience responds or the listener responds. And then, so if that gets taken out, then you start to go into that sort of bedsit mentality where you're playing songs to yourself. Maybe your girlfriend or your boyfriend might hear it, right? Or your dog. But you're not getting that. You aren't getting that feedback. And the other thing is, learning to play and write by playing lots of other people's music is also, huge part of that process, growing as a musician. So it is tough, not just in terms of how to earn money, but it's tough in terms of how do you get good? How do you learn your craft? So, it was even a challenge when we were starting out, in the early 90s when we were looking for gigs and trying to get our sound. It was a struggle, and we had to do gigs that we didn't want to do, or that didn't pay hardly anything, because it was just an opportunity to play in front of people.
That value of time, of being able to grow. I mean, now you're going to play your first gig and your friend's going to put it on TikTok or YouTube. Having that time to grow, and even if you're not getting paid, and even if those gigs aren't how you want them to be, that for sort of time and money are kind of, I feel like in a band scenario, time and money are of the same value, really, in a lot of ways, especially starting out.
I'm so glad there was no YouTube and all that stuff, because I would have just made such a prat of myself. It would be there forever. So I can, like, for some small mercies, I can look back and say, well, at least that wasn't around. But we developed ideas. Some were less successful than others. We actually, Alonso and I, we met at Richmond College when we were kids, and amongst other things, we invented Mushroom House.
Mushroom House.
Mushroom House was invented above his mum's, in his mum's spare room in his house in Hampton. And it involved a little drum machine that she programmed with this, with the beats, working the beats out in the bar, and I had a wah guitar, and it wasn't very good. But I do remember the chant of mushroom. I got to find the recording somewhere. But that would be on YouTube now.
How many years did it take for you to really find that first tune, to write that first song or write that first set of lyrics where you thought, okay, yeah, I can see this is what it's going to be on eventually what K is? Well, how many years do you think until you sort of found the seed?
The first, like one of the first songs, if not the first song we ever played was Govinda. Govinda ended up being a single, ended up becoming one of our sort of signature tunes. And that kind of came out of, out of thin air. It came from God. It was, that was like a blessing. And that is an example of when the magic happens really easily. But then there are others where you just slog and slog and slog and slog, and it can produce a good song, that kind of, like 3-4 days just constantly working. But I started writing quite early on, and I was playing with a lot of older musicians as well, people who are like 10, 15 years older than me. And so I acquired a certain type of neurosis as well about, you got to write commercial music. And it took me a while to shake that off, because I was coming from a place of pure joy. And, they were kind of desperate to make it. And, that was not good to be around, but it has to come from a passion. And then, you, as you work, you start to understand the craft of writing. You start to understand structure and all those things. You start to take pride in something being really well designed.
Those kinds of challenges that you mentioned there, I feel like, look, tell me if I'm wrong, I feel like you try and look getting to the next plateau, or you're trying to get to that next stage, whether that's an EP or signing to a label or playing that gig or festival. And then once you're there, all of a sudden, new challenges, and there's that, I imagine there's always that kind of constant, okay, we've overcome this, but then what's next? I think that's something that I'm really interested in. And it's like key to this podcast is that idea of just constant growth. And there are always going to be battles. There's always going to be, you wake up in the morning and think, fuck, okay, what's the next thing today? How do I find the energy to do that? And I mean, that sounds quite negative, doesn't it? But I mean it in a positive way, because that's growth.
Yeah, exactly. And I was watching that movie Being There the other day, where Peter Sellers plays this kind of idiot gardener who only sort of talks about sort of profound matters in terms of what needs doing to the garden. And, it's true. It's all about, the cycles, the circular nature of life and experience. And, one day you're completely depressed and there's no hope, and it doesn't seem like there's any opportunities, and everything that you're putting your effort into is just screwing up. Because plans never, ever, ever go according to their design. They just don't. I think I've yet to meet anyone whose plans work out. But, then you get your breakthrough this spring, you get the first shoots of hope. and I guess being a musician, part of it, is being self-employed. So you have to generate the faith. You have to generate a sense of, it's going to be self-care, self-nurturing. It's going to be all right. That there's the other side of this experience things are going to bounce back. And that's one of the great things about being in a band. If you've got your mates, if you really are close, then you're not on your own. I remember meeting various solo artists. One person I met on tour was a woman called Joan Osborne. She'd had a huge hit called "If God Was One of Us," and I think we played with her in Berlin or something like that. And we were just one of those sort of tours crossing over, overlapping, and
like ships in the night.
Ships in the night. And she seemed to be, she had a session band, right? So they weren't leaving her, and she was paying them, and she just seemed like a nice girl, but very lonely. Just, having all this success and probably earning good money, but just being really, really, really lonely. And so you gotta ultimately, the mood is something that carries you through the good times and the bad times. Some of our happiest, most memorable times were when we were struggling, without a doubt. And actually, as the success started to snowball, the stress levels went on, the dramas got more constant, and it became much less fun.
There is nothing more special than a human to human connection, like a friend to friend connection, a friend to partner, partner to partner connection. I mean, with the return of Jay Darlington, you got the original lineup. It's the group of friends, it's the group of mates around the pub table.
It's a band of brothers. Yeah. Yeah, well, we had a great keyboard player in the interim years, great musician, and Henry Broadbent, and I met him in a band. He was playing in a band called The Meters. They're doing great Meters covers, and it was just a thing where he couldn't do a tour that we were doing, and there was like a scheduling problem. And then it turned out, Jay's back, Jay's around. He'd been playing with the Gallaghers for a while. Some of it he could remember, and he said, "Yeah, I'm up for it." And we met him in a pub, have a chat. It was very, very Spinal Tap, as most music experiences are. I once heard somebody say, "Oh, that's so Spinal Tap." And I said, "Have you seen Spinal Tap?" She went, "No." The myth of that film has transcended the film itself. But getting together with Jay was like getting together back with Nigel and David St. Hubbins, and the whole Derek Smalls, and the chemistry. It's just it does have a magic, and you can't really put your finger on what it is. It's just an understanding and a connection. There's a film I saw recently, which was a joy to discover because I'd not seen it, and it's called The Lost Film, 1970, Grateful Dead in Britain, coming to Britain for the first time. And it's just, nobody ever bothered to edit it because they got too high or stoned or lost the tapes. And somebody's just chronologically put the reels in order. And whoever was filming was literally just there, just whatever was going on. If they're in a queue, they're filming being in a queue. If they're waiting for a bus, if they are doing a photo shoot, if it doesn't matter how mundane. Right. It's literally, an hour and a half of being a fly on the wall. And it starts with them getting off the plane at Heathrow in 1970. And it's just grainy black and white. And you just get that sense of them as a band and those characters. And they're still young enough to be fun, but they got a little bit of experience under their belt. And years of, pranksters and warlocks and crazy stuff, which is kind of like the roots. But they're still young, and you get to see them living that life of just, it's the mundanity of touring. It's the queuing, it's the waiting, it's the being just schlepping around. That you have to make it. You have to make it an adventure. You have to make it fun with your humor and with your point of view, with your strange, eccentric points of view. Otherwise, you're just going to become a zombie, because there's so much traveling, so much queuing. And it's funny as well, because they're clearly all stoned, and someone's lost their passport, and they're doing an interview, and they've all got jet lag, and Pigpen is saying he's getting too pissed and he won't be able to play soon. And it's very, very good. I recommend anyone go onto YouTube and find it. My cousin sent it to me. He's in California. He's a big Deadhead.
Do you know the author Studs Terkel?
Stub your what?
Studs Terkel.
Studs.
Stub your Terkel.
No, tell me about Studs.
So part inspiration for this, he'd interview people about different things in their life. So there's a book called Working. He'd interview as many people as he could about their jobs, what they usually dislike about them, or family, and how it works. And when you say that, there's beauty in the mundanity of life, I think that's it.
Studs Terkel sounds like a porn star.
Studs Terkel and Ron Jeremy.
Yeah,
coming soon. When you reflect over, you must have lived so many different lives, since the start of the band. Has this been since looking up to this new single and this new record, which we'll get onto, have you been able to reflect on the different different sides of life that you've experienced in the last 30 plus years? I mean, have you gone through times of great interest in one particular thing and another? I mean, how much do you think you've changed really as a person?
Well, I don't know. You'll have to ask my wife. I think we change in our like our whole kind of like psychological programming. I think you can change that if you really want to work at it. If you've most people are traumatized. Most people have got some scars. Most people, had a few bumps on the way through their childhood. Most people do have a certain kind of behavior patterns that they're not conscious of, and they're usually destructive. And I think those kind of things you can get the better of if you take care of yourself and you take an interest in caring for yourself, like you do with your health. But I think your nature, you have an integral nature and an essential kind of character that really stays with you, and even if you believe in, reincarnation, it's still, there is something unique that is there in everybody. And that's why when you look back, you still connect. You say, well, it is the same person, even though I would do things differently, or I might, see things differently now. It's still the same mood. I remember asking my granddad when he was like 80 how old he felt, and he said about 16. And that's the soul, that's the soul's eternally youthful. And every wisdom tradition talks about the soul being indestructible and youthful and just being pure life. So I think I've changed a lot. I've certainly, but I still connect with the songs that I wrote when I was 19. I wrote a song when I was 19, when I was up in Liverpool, visiting my mum when she was doing a play, and I went up there. I was depressed at the time because I just had my heart broken for the first time by a girl, and she'd and I was just in that place of despair. Life's not worth living. And people say, better to have loved and lost. And but I wrote a song up there, whilst I was by the Mersey, and I was very romantic. I think I'm still quite a romantic kind of person at heart. I think that's really the essence of my view of the world and nature and things like that. Even though I'm quite cynical, I think deep down it's a romantic view.
A lot of songs, a lot of my favorite records, there's a common theme of unrequited love. When you grow a bit older and you find love and you find a partner and you find a best friend, does that way of writing songs, is there always going to be something that you're missing? Is that at the heart of a lot of those songs that are most touching? Unrequited love could turn into, for another human, could turn into unrequited love for another part of your life. Do you see what I'm saying? Is that something that's necessary, do you think, in songwriting?
Pain is definitely necessary. You gotta have pain. Pain is definitely a huge part, of hope, and sort of pain informs your humanity. It allows you to sort of like empathize with people, And I mean, I wouldn't prescribe pain to anybody, but it does seem to be, the way to appreciate that, the human condition, which so much of it is a struggle and a challenge. That if you understand that, you can't sing about faith, hope, and all those positive things if you don't acknowledge how much pain there is, going on. So I would rather not have to suffer that kind of heartbreak again, but it does help with the tunes. Poets, they've always been obsessed with this, the beauty and decay, and that seeing beauty in the world, that it is always going to be infused with a sort of sadness because everything's temporary. But then even if you get into spiritual life, most people get into spiritual life because they are looking for to make sense of all the suffering. And the thing is that spiritual life is all about a sort of the lament of the soul, because it's all about union and separation with God. So I think it's just part of who we are. You can't escape it. And when you get into all this mystical stuff, for me, music always ultimately, all the people that I follow, all the people that I use the word follow because we're in this age now, followers, but the people that has inspired me and I've listened to and read, they always end up on kind of on a spiritual path. That's where their ideas and their thoughts and their music and their art or their humanity, it always takes them into a spiritual realm, and it's all about making sense of these moods.
It's natural magic. You'll have to forgive me.
Yeah,
for that.
Nice. Hey, you need like a little musical sting. Thank you. Yeah, well, the natural magic. It looks like the whole album we've been working on is it's to do with chemistry ultimately, and it's to do with when you tap into something that's just greater than the individuals. It's the sum of the parts, and it's that higher connection to what you do and who you are. And again, sorry to go on about spiritual life, but that's what spiritual life is about too. It's not just about you and your small little worldview. It's about you're connected to something that's infinite. You are connected to it. It shouldn't make you feel small. It should make you feel connected, and that's a beautiful thing.
Have you explored that on a practical level? Have you put time aside in your day, in your diary, to practice spirituality?
Practice makes perfect, for sure. Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Whatever you do, whether it's cooking or trimming hedges, playing guitar, writing, dancing, whatever you do, you gotta work at it. But if you love it, and if you feel a connection, then you will work at it, and you will work at it even when it feels uncomfortable. My kid's been listening to podcasts. He's just turned 15, and my kid is just kind of got his head around he really appreciates how you got to push yourself, and that in pushing yourself out of your comfort zone into that place where you are testing what's comfortable and what you're capable of. There's huge rewards there. And that's the difference between being a sort of somebody who just dabbles and somebody who can really start to become an original.
I'm no stranger to feeling depressed, being blue, feeling a real crisscross of like anxiety, just feeling like the weight, a real weight, from the very first. It comes to me worse in the mornings, and I feel like I've woken up most of my life feeling, fucked basically. And it's taken me 32 years to realize, I actually have to do things.
Maybe I shouldn't have drunk that vodka.
Yeah, you have to do things to feel better. You have to. Something for me, something that I have a bit of a problem with, I realize, is like the chaos of the world. And so that's why I've got into sports again, in the way that sports is, it has a schedule. I can watch the cricket, I can have the football. It's organized. It brings brings an order to my chaos. With spirituality and taking this stuff seriously, is that a thesis to natural magic? And in that sense, did the ideas and the lyrics and the phrases, did that stuff come before the music, before getting in a room together?
There's never a fixed way for lyrics. I sometimes you start with a title, sometimes you start with a line, sometimes you start with an idea. Like today I played somebody, the Mike Batt Orchestra did a whole album about the tarot. It was it's a ridiculous album. It's worth hearing. But he's like, somebody comes up with an idea. I want to do an album about the runes, or I don't know, about what car magazine. It depends. There's been a few times where I've woken up with or I've dreamt of a song or a piece of music, and I've had to kind of work on it in the day obsessively. But on the whole, what I find is that you get an initial inspiration, and then that's like the core energy, that's the and then that light will illuminate what you put around it. And because most of the process of the songwriting is the crafting and the structuring around that initial idea. So I know that some people, I've heard it compared to where you like get a gem, and then you have to clean the gem and then set it into the ring, and the ring is the structure, is the songwriting process. But you have to have that initial idea. You got to have that gem to start off with, and you need to buff it up. So I think there's a lot of work involved with songwriting, and but it's never the same every time. It always has a slightly different incarnation.
I mean, you've been touring, since coming back after lockdown and before lockdown. You were touring. You were an active band. Did you feel like you needed a reason to do a seventh record? Was there that idea that? Was there ever that idea that you could do a seventh record? Yeah, you could start working on it tomorrow or next week. But was there an element that you felt like you had to have a shape, an idea for the record? Because that's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like these songs have just a raison d'etre. It's just like, okay, we're doing this for a reason. It has that vibe. Like Waves is such a tune. It's brilliant. It sounds like it could have been released in 91 or in 3 years from now. It's timeless. It's excellent.
Oh, that's nice to hear. Waves was written off the back of a bunch of gigs. I think I wrote it after a gig in Manchester, which is why you've got the Boys in Manchester, and the Birds of Liverpool, and I think I was on tour around England. It was just really good to get back on the road again after the lock-up years, and so it all comes out in the music. But then the previous record, the first Congregational Church of Eternal Love and Free Hugs, that was songs that were being written throughout 2020 to 2022, and it wasn't until the very, very end that I realized, okay, oh my God, it's a double album, and there's what are the themes that are connecting it? I had to stand back just to kind of see what's going on here with these songs. Is there a story, and what was I on about? And then we came up with this idea of a church, a small little English church in the middle of a thunderstorm, and the church has a leaky roof, and the congregation are all huddled in there, and everyone's got a cough, and it's very English, and the vicar is just like something out of a Ealing comedy, and we use little snippets of the church service to break up the record, and it gave it a shape, and it gave it a story. The story being the fall of Lucifer and the defeat of the demons. And so we thought, yeah, that works. That works for a double album. I think I'm going to have to give it a very long title that no one can remember. So we did. And this one is much more, this album is much more like, you know, Jay's back. We're going to do 2.5 minute, 3 minute songs. We're going to get right into that kind of pop energy. And we're back where we were when we were kids, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it feels like First Congregational Church for Eternal Love. That feels like a bit of a blowout. Like it's like a free form. It's got a free form nature.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to do. And
Did you know at the time writing that there was going to be a time for the 3.5 minute song after that?
No, I think we did it. We just work on it where we're at the time. And when Jay came back, it felt like it just was natural. Let's just go for it. And also my kids started playing music. My 14-year-old's pretty good drummer, and my younger kid was who's 11 was playing electric guitar, and they were playing great. They sounded great, and I'd hear them down like splashing away at like 3-chord tricks, real punk, proper punk. And it was really joyful for me to hear. And so when I'm writing as well, I'm thinking I got to keep up with them. Like those guys are really. That's a lot of energy. So I'm also, like bouncing off that. I don't want to become an old fart just yet. But I think it's an exciting time for music. I was talking to somebody earlier today about when I was at college and how that when the dance thing happened, with acid house and Manchester and just the convergence of indie music and punk and dance music and recreational drug culture and politics, alternative politics, and even environmentalism, when it was actually about protecting the earth, looking after the earth, protecting the big polluters and the corporations. It was a massive convergence, and it freaked people out. And the newspapers didn't like it, and your parents didn't like it, and your parents didn't understand it, and it was an exciting time. And I think it's happening again now in the alternative media, and it's a cool time if you're in it, if you know about it, and a lot of people don't still. And they're trying to sort of the official line is that the alternative media is a little bit dangerous. And that you might come across crazy ideas, but that just sounds exactly what they said about punk or about hip hop or about rock and roll or about the hippie movement. It's good if it's a bit dangerous. It's good. It means that we're still growing and we're still moving.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
101 part-time jobs, 101 part-time jobs. Thanks so much, Crispian. This is a lot of fun. I think the range of artists that I'm speaking to about this battle to survive, there's such a huge net of things. And I think one of the reasons why I love doing this is that I haven't found the answer yet, and I don't think I'm going to find the answer for another, more 10,000 hours, for another 7,000 hours.
When you say the battle to survive, what exactly do you mean?
I mean being able to find time in the day to write, to find the headspace.
Oh, right.
Plug into that thing. Yeah, I know it sounds big, doesn't it? The battle to survive, but I think that's ultimately what it is.
Well, I think part of the battle is to stay human, and to not become a demoralized, desensitized automaton, which is really what the society we live in is pushing us and pushing us and pushing us. It's like living with an abusive partner. Don't think differently. Don't just all the messaging that you get is so negative. And it seems like the message is, you just conform, and that's not going to make anybody happy, because everybody's unique, everybody's different. And so I think that being in touch with your humanity, not being afraid to feel pain, not being afraid to be in touch with that loneliness that you might feel, or the anxiety, whatever that is that you're carrying around with you, because everybody is, and to get into the idea of self-care, like everyone talks about, I'm going to look after my body, I'm going to take protein shakes, I'm going to go down the gym, or I'm going to go, plant-based or whatever. It's cool that this kind of health movement is going mainstream, but there's a self-care that happens on an emotional level, on a psychic level, and that's probably more important. And if you're healthy physically, if you're healthy emotionally, if you are able to look after yourself, care for yourself, in a gentle sort of compassionate way, then you are able to kind of start to move into that more spiritual headspace, and that is the most creative space you can be in. It is the most creative, productive space you can be in as a writer, as an artist, as a human being, as a creative person. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a songwriter. Could be a gardener. You could be a teacher. It's just that creative expression that comes from being in touch with yourself, and not being all having too much interference on the line.
Yeah, it's very easy to live very superficially today.
Stay human.
Stay human. Crispian, thank you so much. Cheers for giving me your time, giving me your thoughts. Could I ask one quick question before we leave? We're living in that kind of generation in my generation, it's very LinkedIn, it's very applying for jobs, it's very LinkedIn and Indeed.co.uk, and basically saying, you're the most perfect person in the world. I mean,
yeah.
I think as a rejection of that, I quite like asking people about the mistakes they've made, in the workplace or otherwise, because those mistakes are the biggest lessons that you learn more often than not. And obviously everyone's had things they don't want to talk about, but I'm putting you on the spot here, but are there any particular moments or decisions that you've made, things that you've done that you think, fuck, that was rubbish, that was an awful, I shouldn't have done that job, I shouldn't have done that gig, I shouldn't have done this and that, but I learned from it. I'm putting you on the spot. Does anything come to mind there?
Everything I've done has been perfect. No, I did once ask my granddad, and he was 92 or 93. I said, what do you think your biggest fault is? And he thought for a very long time, and he just said, I haven't got any. I think the truth is that the biggest pitfall, I think, generally, is the desire to try to control the outcome, and also to enjoy the fruits of that outcome. Because, like I was saying earlier, plans never things never go according to plan. There's always mistakes. And I also think that there's a certain illusion that you're in control, because there's so many factors at play in life, so many contributing influences spinning around in time and space. And there's an analogy in India, that one that my spiritual teacher told me, and he said about there's two ways of looking at being absorbed in God, and one is that they have you see a cat pick up her kitten, she picks it up by the neck, and the cat carries it around, and you can see that she's completely given herself over to her protector, and she's just being plonked from one place to the next. And the monkey, the mother monkey, she carries her kid around, but the kid is holding on underneath the tummy. She's just holding on like that. And so there's an effort required on the part of that baby. There's some effort required, but at the same time, you're being moved around. And for me, that's kind of my attitude, and one that I've adopted, that you have to work hard. You have to make a lot of effort, but you also have to kind of let go of the outcome and be always ready to see how things are changing, and be fluid and go with those changes, and be humble about the outcome, because you cannot control it. And the people who think they're in control are suffering mentally all the time. They're constantly in anxiety, and you can't. I mean, it's an infinite universe of influences out there. So, they say go with the flow. You got to go with the flow. You got to swim with the current too. So, excuse all the analogies here, but for me, my biggest screw ups in the past all came from me trying to be the controller. And when I kind of backed off and realized that songs were an intuitive process, and lucky breaks or problems that happened, they were also kind of things that were out of my control. And so you just constantly have to be in this process of working and letting go, and working and letting go, and it's the art of living. It's a dance, darling. So get your castanets out.
Thank you so much, Crispian.
My pleasure.
So there he was, Crispian Mills from Kula Shaker, here on 101 Part-Time Jobs. Thank you for listening to this show. If you enjoyed it, please leave a review or a rating on Apple or Spotify. Subscribe wherever you're listening to this. That stuff all does wonders for the show and helps me keep getting incredible guests like Crispian on the show. So thank you. I'll be back with a new episode tomorrow with Dublin's The Murder Capital, an incredible band. If you haven't heard them, I'd highly recommend checking them out. They'll be with me telling some more stories of making it all work. See you again.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.